in some place of La Mancha of which I don't wish to remember. And so begins Miguel de Cervantes' classic novel, Don Quixote de la Mancha. And these are the windmills where Don Quixote faced the giants, and him and his horse Rocinante went against those windmills and got caught in the sails, spun up and around, and dropped off in these dry hills. Or so say the villagers of Consuegra, a town in the Castilian plains of La Mancha, where Miguel de Cervantes said his tale of a mad hidalgo who gone off to in search of adventure with his servant, his squire, Sancho Panza, and thinking of Dulcinea as a princess. Meanwhile, she was really a peasant girl. I'm not sure a lot of, even though this book is the most famous book in Spain and in the rest of Spanish-speaking America, Latin America, I'm not sure that many people have actually read it. Maybe it's due to the Elizabethan era language. It's quite dense. But if people actually read the book, I think they would realize that it's actually full-on 100% slapstick comedy. It's pure comedy. And I'm not talking about Shakespeare comedy where it's a lot of cross-dressing and then the confusions and then everything else turns out well in the end. No, this is full-on Monty Python, roll around belly laughs comedy, and a lot of it is physical comedy. And it's just, this book could have been written today, and it's just super funny. It tells a lot about the Spanish character, especially the landed gentry, the hidalgos, which Don Quixote was an hidalgo. An hidalgo would have been somebody from this area that had some land and had some goats, but then not a lot of money. So maybe they had titles but not money. But so that covers a lot of the conquistadors that went down to the New World. For example, Hernan Cortez was an hidalgo that didn't inherit the big farm, so he had to go to the New World. And Cervantes quite astutely skewed that social class and gave Sancho Panza a very incisive viewpoint on social classes in Spain that not only talk about the times that it was written, but I think it explains the whole process of the conquest and the whole process of Franco and the whole process of even Spain today, where you can see the hidalgos and you can see the Sancho Panzas and how fantastical ideas these hidalgos get in their heads sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. So if you ever get a chance, read Don Quixote de la Mancha. Unfortunately, they've never been able to make a good new movie about it. They've tried. Even one of the Monty Pythons tried to make a movie about it, but they failed. And I think they need to treat it like a comedy. I think it's the only way it would work. And you need an actor that can really pull it off. That can really pull off the physical comedy of it, which is not easy. So, but it's just an amazing book. So make sure you read it. And it helps you understand Spain, and it helps you understand even Roman Spain, because these hidalgos were basically legacy of what the Romans founded here in Spain, which were these rustic farms out in the fields, far away from the cities, run by basically like what would have been an hidalgo back in the time. So I think the Romans set it up for Don Quixote. Let's keep exploring on the Roman road. Welcome to Alcazar de San Juan, a Quixotesque town in the middle of La Mancha, with a hill full of Quixotic windmills, with a Quixotic square, and a fabulous statue of Don Quixote and his loyal sidekick Sancho Panza. And this is the town that has adopted Don Quixote, hook, line, and sinker, and they even claim to have Miguel de Cervantes, the writer of Don Quixote. They even claim to have his baptismal font and his house and all kinds of stuff. There are conflicting reports that Cervantes had actually nothing to do with this town, but this is not what the tourism board of this town wants you to know. So we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to find out if Cervantes indeed had anything to do with some place in La Mancha called Alcalá de Henares. But in any case, Alcalá de...
Alcatraz de San Juan.
Alcatraz de San Juan. And it would be very quixotic that a town in La Mancha decides to self-declare themselves the Cervantes and Quixote capital of La Mancha. So let's get to the bottom of this. Let's explore some place of La Mancha. See if Cervantes ever came here or not. Let's go. Oh, in April they do a big Quixote festival. So if you're in this part of La Mancha, come here for the Quixote festival in April. And in May they do Quixote food. So let's explore some place in La Mancha from which I don't want to remember. So in a very quixotic way, this town has competing claims as the birthplace of Miguel de Cervantes, the author of Don Quixote, and they claim that he was born in this house, right here, and that's why it's part of the Don Quixote route. This is actually called Cervantes Plaza, a little obelisk there marks the spot, and it would be very fitting for a small town in La Mancha to make these claims. Now they back up the claim saying that they did find baptismal records in the local church with Miguel de Cervantes' full name, like Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra, full name, which they say, I know it was also earlier than it was found earlier than the official birthplace, which is near Madrid. So that's what they're clinging on. So we can go check out the church. It might be closed because it's not mass yet, but we're going to go see where, according to this town, Miguel de Cervantes was baptized here in Alcazar de San Juan. So we're outside what they call the Casa del Hidalgo, the Hidalgo's house, here in Alcazar de San Juan. And basically an Hidalgo during Cervantes' time would have been a landed gentry. He would have land in this area. This is still to this day agricultural, and some of them would have some of them would be minor nobles, minor nobility, and in particularly with Don Quixote's case, he was an Hidalgo. He would have lived in a similar house to this one. It's quite fairly palatial for a small town that we are in, with an interior courtyard and beautiful front wall here, big door, and he would have a couple of servants, and but a lot of landed gentry were impoverished, and particularly in the case of Don Quixote, he'd gone mad reading books of chivalry, and he was been selling off his land in this area to buy more books of chivalry, and he read so many books that he went crazy. And so basically this house represents, if Don Quixote was a real person, he would have lived in a place like that. So, and one of the reasons Don Quixote was poor was because he kept selling his land to buy more and more books, chivalry books. So, don't buy chivalry books. So now we're going to go to the church where they claim the writer of Don Quixote was born, and they have the paperwork to prove it. So let's go.
By the statue of Cervantes and the old Moorish tower, we find the baptismal font where the writer of Don Quixote was baptized in 1558. Paperwork was found at the church that matches Miguel de Cervantes' full name and his parents' names. Has been baptized in this church in 1558.
This is the famous dish from this area of the world, Manchego dish, that is actually mentioned in the first page of Don Quixote. It's called Duelos y Quebrantos. And the English version is translated simply as scraps. And what it is, it's scraps of chorizo and bits of scraps of pork scrambled with eggs. And the reason that would be in the first page is to show that Don Quixote was an hidalgo that had gone into hard times and he wasn't eating prime meat, and he was down to eating scraps with scrambled eggs. And so we're here in the town that most probably not only was the town where the author of Don Quixote lived and worked most of his time, but also the town where a lot of the characters from Don Quixote are based on real people that lived in this town. So I'm convinced, I'm definitely convinced after visiting, that this is the real place where the characters of Don Quixote lived and where Cervantes spent most of his time. So now let's try Don Quixote's.
What's the name of the town?
The town is called Alcazar de San Juan. Now let's try Don Quixote's favorite meal, Duelos y Quebrantos. Welcome to the windmills of Campo de Criptana in La Mancha. And even though there are several towns in La Mancha that claim to be the actual windmills that Don Quixote fought against, this is the only town that actually fits the book. Even though the author of Don Quixote, he purposely never mentioned the town where Don Quixote was from. He left us a lot of clues, and basically by reading the book, people have been able to figure out that it had to be a town on El Camino Real, between Murcia and like the Madrid area, and between the distance from here to El Toboso. So they've determined that this had to be the windmills that Don Quixote fought against, because this was the only town that back in the 1500s had 30 windmills in this particular area. And the way they describe it and the distance from the town that they reckon Don Quixote was born, which was Alcazar de San Juan. So they reckon Don Quixote left Alcazar de San Juan and got to this area. And then here's where back in the 1500s there were 30 windmills, and now there's half a dozen or so. So here it is, the real windmills where Don Quixote fought giants in a very rainy day, very cold day in La Mancha. It's about 4 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius, and we're on the trace of El Quijote in Sancho Panza. Let's check out the windmills. barber's dish, a woman, a taverna, and a knight errant have in common. Welcome to El Toboso, home of Dulcinea del Toboso, Don Quixote's enchanted maiden. In the novel, Don Quixote has gone completely crazy, and he wears a peculiar hat that has an indentation on the top, and it turns out that it's not actually a hat; it's a Elizabethan era barber's dish, and the indentation is to put it along your neck so the barber could shave you or take your teeth out or things like that. And he would wear that in his head. So this tin hat, sign of his madness. And Dulcinea, there's about a block from here, you can go visit Dulcinea's house. And according to Sancho Panza, she's just a hearty country girl who maybe has loose morals and has been running around with all the shepherds in the village. But for Don Quixote's eyes, she is like the most perfect princess, and he only has eyes for her. And if you read the book, when other women pretend to be in love with Don Quixote, he only has eyes for dear Dulcinea. Eventually, Sancho pulls a joke on Quixote, and he pays these peasant girls to pretend that they're Dulcinea, and Don Quixote gets close to them, and the girls stank of garlic and they look rather rough. And Don Quixote tells Sancho, "I must be enchanted because instead of a princess, I'm seeing these rough country girls." And of course, he was seeing rough country girls, not princesses. But he was convinced that he was enchanted by evil wizards. Then they run into Merlin, the magician, and he convinces him that if Sancho Panza gets like 2,000 lashes, the enchantment will be lifted, and Dulcinea will stop being a peasant girl and she'll become this beautiful princess again. So for most of the second part of the book, Don Quixote Part 2, Don Quixote is trying to convince Sancho Panza to get his lashes. And of course, Sancho Panza doesn't want to get his lashes. And so that's why it's such a funny book. So here we are in El Toboso, home of beautiful Dulcinea. Peasant girl? Princess? We don't know. Definitely don't want to have 2,000 lashes to find out.